You're listening to the Non-Del Influencers Podcast, brought to you by First Funding. Join host Matt Coles as he delivers powerful conversations to help non-delegated lenders succeed and scale in today's market.
All right. Well, welcome back to the latest episode of the Non-Del Influencer Podcast. Very excited today to have Ryan Black, partner with Mann Graham. Ryan, how was your season of conferences that we just ended up going? Were they fruitful for you?
You know, they were. My spring tends to be a little bit busier than my fall, but I just got back from NAM annual and MBA annual, and both of them were in Vegas this year, which helped. But both were very good, very fruitful. A lot of optimism, I think, in the industry, which is always a good thing. Brings more people out. So yeah, it was a good conference season for us.
Yeah, I think I do a weekly, I don't know, maybe a template of an email to my sales team, talking about like the 3 things that they can bring out to their lenders on a weekly basis. And this week there was an article from ICE that talked about that this is the most ready market for refinances since 2022. And if rates drop down to 6 1/8, you're looking at 5 million plus home buyers that will be in the money by 3/4 in rate and have credit and equity that would be primed to strike. So the feeling really is there. I said it on my last podcast. I feel like we're at the beginning of another boom, right? I feel like we're ready to cycle again.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it. And we'll get into it, I'm sure in a moment. But you know, our principal business here at Mann Graham is helping lenders meet the practice of law requirements in Texas by drawing docs for lenders, no matter how big or small, when they do a loan here. And a number of lenders, you can tell, are taking advantage of what little drop we saw in rates in September and October, and we're continuing to see that pay dividends through November, and I anticipate, like you said, 2026 being very similar. There'll be moments or opportunities for lenders to identify clients that should be refinancing based on the current rates and or the rates at the time, and volume will go up significantly those months. But you got to be prepared and have your pulse, your finger on the pulse.
Yeah, and I think like with the advent of AI, obviously that's been the biggest topic of conversation in 2025, and it's not going to slow down anytime soon. I feel like we're in a place where we can be ready. I've been doing this for 25 years, and every time this happens, though, and I'm interested in your feedback about this, is are we ready for this? Are we ready for, hey, it's not going to be 24-hour turn time. Maybe it's a 48-hour turn time. Or are we going to be expecting to meet 24-hour turn time? What do you think about staffing and what that looks like as the market, this year we've had short bursts of opportunity. And so it hasn't really been too impactful to needing to hire a ton of people. But what does it look like for you? And what are you expecting in that if we do have a prolonged run of lower interest rates?
Yeah, we've for our business, our line of business that does the closing and back end fulfillment piece for non-delegated correspondent lenders in particular, we have been staffing up over there because we've seen an increase in volume, not terribly significant, but we also see where things are going, right?
Yeah.
And that's on top of our ability to look at how to, especially during the downturn, look at how to streamline things as much as possible from a technology perspective over the last couple of years. And so I do think that despite technology stepping in and maybe providing new resources or new solutions that weren't available to us back in 2020, there's still a need for a human in the loop, right? And their position might look different than what it looked like back in 2020, but there's a need there, and we're staffing up accordingly.
Well, I don't know, how long have you been a partner at Black Mann Graham now?
I've been a partner about 5 years. I've been with the firm about 10 years total now.
Okay, so I love this feedback, because obviously, like, I'm super interested in what you've seen as the evolution of the non-delegated space since the time that you started to where we are today. Just anecdotally for me, like, it's exploding on the non-del space. I mean, we're seeing more and more people come into this space. And there's a couple different reasons why, but I'm interested in hearing your feedback about what you're seeing and maybe the reasons why you think it's exploding on the side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been natural, the contraction and especially wholesale business that occurred around the financial crisis, right? And now people are kind of getting back into what things looked like back then, where brokers and non-delegated correspondent lenders originated a greater share of the loans than what we saw 10 years ago, right? 10 years ago, they were almost non-existent. And so I think it's been a bit of a natural progression, because you could only go up from where they were. But at the same time, lenders, wholesale lenders, technology providers have made it so much easier for non-dels to exist. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, when we were helping lenders meet practice of law requirements, lenders were sending data points to us by fax, and we were typing in the information we needed to type in on our desktops to create the doc set. Now everybody's got that at the tip of their fingertips through their loan origination system, which just makes things so much easier, so much more streamlined for these lenders. And so, I think it's been the natural progression of the market, and more lenders, investors, wholesale lenders getting into the space. But B, they've quote unquote democratized technology in a way that's allowed smaller lenders, smaller institutions to really compete with these larger guys.
Yeah. And, the third aspect that I always like to talk about is the branding side of it, right? Which is, in a world of social media where we're all trying to like stand out amongst the crowd of videos where we scroll up, doom scroll, I guess is what they call it, right? The brand of being able to have that conversation from start to finish with the name of your company and not having to explain who anyone else might be seems to be really catching on. And I think that's part of the natural evolution of a ton of our friends from the distributed retail channel coming in to the TPO world, right? They saw what we could be doing on this side, and they're like, hey, we can take this and we're going to run with it. So it's been a fantastic run on the non-del side.
That's a great point. And you see it quite a lot. People owning their own brand and creating that narrative for a borrower, potential borrowers, of, hey, this is who you need to reach out to when the time's right. Keep the conversation going throughout the life of the relationship, not just right before they need a loan. And that's certainly been a differentiator in that time frame as well.
So can you take me through what that looks like? So take me through the first time customer, right? They're coming in, they want to move into the non-del space. I think myself and maybe even some of my sales team, we kind of take it for granted that when we mention fulfillment, we think they know what that means. And can you just kind of take us through, like, how does your team go about it? What's the approach, and what services are you providing to make sure everything is compliant, start to finish?
Well, that's not all solutions are the same, right? So I'll speak for ourselves. What we do for the non-del correspondent lenders is we'll come in at the point of the initial closing disclosure going out. Okay, so you as the non-del have handled everything from application to the early disclosures. Now it's time to go to closing. You upload the data from your LOS to our system. We start the initial closing disclosure and working with title to balance, right? So then eventually we close the loan for you. We're doing our QC on our side of things, running compliance on it, identifying issues ahead of time. And then, assuming everything's good, we go to closing. Once we're at closing, we call you guys, we get the wire from you, and then fund the loan and ship it to the investor. And once we ship it to the investor, what we're doing is we're checking the investor's website periodically to determine, all right, what conditions need to be cleared now in order to get this thing finally purchased off of your warehouse line. Because as I'm sure you're telling them all the time, time is money. You got to get these loans off of the warehouse line as quickly as possible. And so that's a very key aspect to this, is not just getting it off of the warehouse line quickly by these conditions that have been set by the investor, but identifying those conditions ahead of time so that we're not having to resolve them after closing. Once that's done, we'll monitor for final docs, but you as the non-del have had your loan bought off the warehouse line, and that money's been freed up to go originate a new loan.
Yeah. So in this marketplace, right, there are investors today that are offering up that service, right? They'll say, hey, we'll do the ICD and the closing doc for you. There's got to be a value add that I know your sales team is talking about. What is that, and why would somebody choose to work with Blackman Graham rather than having the investor handle it? What's the value that's delivered there?
I think that solution works really well for a lot of lenders, and I think for us, it's when you're diversifying the investors you work with. You're working with investors that we're familiar with. I'll admit there's certain loan products and investors out there that we're not as familiar with, so we might not be a good fit for you. But in terms of working with BMG, you're likely working with multiple investors. You like the idea of bringing docs in, quote unquote, in-house by having us do that closing function for you. Yeah. And it's on the roadmap for you to bring that in-house eventually, and then continue to grow.
It's the simplicity, right? I mean, again, if you're working with 8 or 9 different investors, learning how to draw, initial disclosure or closing docs 8 or 9 different ways, where you can just have a simple stop all solution. And there's a unhidden talk. I don't think there's a talked about point, which is what policies and procedures do investors have to ensure that those docs are saleable for the lender, right? They say that they are, but what are the errors and omission requirements for these investors that are providing that? Sometimes you got to ask that, right? You don't know exactly if somebody makes an error on the initial closing disclosure prepared by the investor, and you're a lender, who owns that? Right? In your world, you own that, I would imagine, and you take responsibility for that. So,
unfortunately, I do. I do take that stance. So we've had to, I'll admit, we've had to buy a loan before, because when we make a mistake, that's on us. But I think it depends on the type of lender that you are, the type of products you're originating, and how comfortable you are with the investors that you're working with. If you're working with 1 or 2 investors and having them do all the work, I mean, why upend the apple cart? But if you're working with 4 or 5 different investors, and you plan on bringing on some new ones, and you don't know necessarily how to navigate that, I think a third-party fulfillment solution would make sense in that instance. And there's some that'll handle the. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, that's really, ultimately, when we talk about people moving from broker to banker, right? It's about choice and selection, and not being beholden to 1 or 2 investors that might want to, that you were working with on the wholesale side. The opportunity really is for you to expand upon it. So I love that the value add is bring us in so that you can have that freedom to grow, expand out your offering, and start working with different investors that have the opportunity. It's a really good value add that you guys are delivering on that side of it.
Yeah, the benefit I hear most from lenders about going broker to banker is control, right? All of a sudden, they feel like they can control the process, the appraisal process, as much as you can control the appraisal process, and closing. And when you have a closing solution like ours in place, then it's the same experience each time for your borrower, as opposed to when you've got 6 or 7 different providers generating the docs and providing a different closing experience for your borrower. So it does have its benefits for sure.
Where are we with, I mean, and from my seat, the e-note process has been not as robustly put out there, I guess, as a solution in our TPO world as I think it should be. And I'm kind of hoping that we move towards that. What are you seeing on the e-note side of things, and what do we need to do to get mass adoption of the e-note process?
I think that it's just something that's going to take time. And from about 10 years ago when I first started, it's been the same issue. We're waiting on investor appetite for these, right? And I think that the benefit has always been obvious with an e-closing, with an e-note, is, hey, this can get sold off of my warehouse line even faster than what I'm currently doing. And there's been studies that suggest that people who do it right are realizing that benefit. I think that 2020, ironically, as much as we're looking for solutions like e-closing and avoiding people in person, it kind of set this back a little bit. I thought we might have been a little bit further along than where we are today. Here in Texas, we've got some really prescriptive rules, especially around our home equity laws, and that would prevent you from doing the remote online notarization, doing a cash out loan from home. So there's been some of that in the way, but not a ton. California was one of the last big states to adopt the national RON legislation, remote online notarization legislation, to standardize it across the country. So there's a lot of legal and regulatory barriers that have been leveled. It's just a matter of adoption, I think, frankly, and appetite. And if we're going to wait for customers to demand that they close with an e-closing, I think we're going to be waiting for a little bit longer, right? I just don't think that's something that they know to ask for up front. But when they get to closing, they're probably going, why aren't we doing this remotely? This doesn't make sense.
There can't be any, I mean, I don't know every industry, obviously, but there can't be any other industry where you have to go to a place and sign 87 different pieces of paper to get what you're trying to do. I mean, if you look at I was in and out of buying my car in 5 minutes. It literally took 7 signatures, right? So I know it's not the same, but there is got to be some adoption here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's on the way. I know I've got some clients that have a strong appetite for it. We're a law firm, and so our technology solution looks like a technology solution created by a law firm 15 years ago, because that's what it was. Yeah. And so we recently partnered with LendingPad to leverage their new doc solution. And so starting very soon here, soon after the release of this episode, we'll be going live with LendingPad on generating docs, and early on the roadmap is to do e-closing. We want to be able to offer that for our clients, and so we're really excited about that. There will be a lot of lessons to learn once we start rolling that out, but I think it's necessary that lenders to provide to our lender clients, because they're going to need to be able to pivot quickly when their competitors are doing it, right?
Well, no, I mean, listen, I mean, I've only been in the seat for a year and a half. So last year was my first holiday season when I was dealing with collateral, right? Dealing with the shipment. And just I mean, FedEx and UPS, it gets sloppy at the end of the year. And like, there's, people are checking in notes, but they're still on the truck and the guy's still going to deliver it like the next day. It just gets really bogged down. And it just seems so antiquated that we have to literally sit here and track FedEx packages on a regular basis. It just doesn't seem like the right way to do business.
Absolutely. Maybe that's who's behind the lack of adoption.
Yeah, well, that might be true, right? And God bless FedEx. They've done such a great name. They've done such a good job of branding themselves that no one ever thinks that they make a mistake.
Right.
And so when it happens, it either falls on my shoulders, the investor's shoulders, or your shoulders, because FedEx can never make an error ever. No. It's good branding that they've built over the last couple of years. So, all right. So we're filming this, or we're recording this at the end or mid-November. I think we're going to be scheduled for December release on this episode. I love this time of year, just talking about what's the game plan for 2026. And I only ever look at like the full year. What do you, other than the LendingPad integration, which sounds extremely exciting, what's on your roadmap for the first quarter of 2026 for you guys?
Technology adoption is definitely top of mind, especially after going to those conferences we were talking about earlier. AI must have sponsored these events because it was discussed at virtually each session, right? Yeah. And I joke that some of the solutions I looked at 7-8 years ago weren't called AI back then, but now they're the same thing. They're called AI, and they cost twice as much because of that.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, if you're not looking at solutions out there to enhance your business, to keep what you do well, and keep it going well, then you're going to be in trouble. And so we've been looking at a number of providers to help us execute better. There's no silver bullet out there. I don't think, at least I haven't found it. And so until that day comes where there's a technology that everybody has to have, I'm just going to keep looking at what the marketplace has to offer, what can help us continue to do better. The one thing I caution my clients on, that especially in the non-del space, when they're looking at technology, is remember the problems that larger institutions faced over the last couple of years with technology. And that's been the cost to originate's gone up when the volume goes down or goes away, right? And so even if your dollar volume, the number or the amount in real money that you originate in a year, even though that goes up, are your units going up? They might not be necessarily. And if your units aren't going up, then your cost to originate is going to go up. And so that's been one headache that we've been trying to deal with, especially in the most recent markets the last couple of years. But as we see what we anticipate to be an upswing for 2026, we want to make sure that we're ready to go, and we've adopted the necessary technologies to continue competing.
You said a couple interesting things I want to dive into really quick, because one is at MBA, AWS, Amazon Web Services went out. Remember, I think it was on that Monday of MBA, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday of MBA, I forget what day. And so when I went up to the trade show floor, like half of the demos didn't work, right? Because AWS was out. And it really just continues to strike home about the planning that you need to have if something goes offline. Yeah. That's a big thing that we spend time on over here, because if our website is down, right, like how do we get wire orders out? Business doesn't stop just because something's not available. And it's making me realize how vulnerable we are to a web. If AWS goes out for 72 hours, a ton of people cannot operate. And if you don't have a plan in place for how to operate without the technology that you're based on today, it makes it really tough, right? You at least have to do some type of planning for what does it look like if we go offline. The next thing that you mentioned, which was all this technology reminds me of when I was young in the industry, and in 2005 or six or something like that, the company I was working for, we were implementing a new system. So we had to kind of like unwind all the bolt-ons that we did with the old system, and it was just chaotic. It literally was like you remove this and then this doesn't work, and you remove it. So you got to look at your technology not just from a, hey, I'm going to go get this. You have to look at it from a top-down level. Like, what does it look like when we changed it? Because ultimately, we're going to be going through this in 2026. Technology is good for what, 5 or 6 years at this point, and then you got to look at what's going to be next 5 or 6 years down the road, and what does that look like when you're rolling it out? It's not an end all be all solution forever. I mean, our system Fuel, which you guys work in as well, it's been around for 8 or 9 years. It's like a house, right? It's got to be painted every 8 or 9 years, and so I got to figure this part out.
Yeah, and to your point, especially like on the closing side, if you pull on one area, you're going to be pushing in another, and maybe there was a business rule that you created 7 years ago that you forgot about, and that's going to be impacted when you mess with things. And so that's always messy, new technology adoption, but it just goes into that calculus of what's necessary, what's going to allow us to continue to compete, and what's going to help us grow, as opposed to just setting us back and being, more technology I'm paying for, but not seeing the fruits of our labor from.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great 2026. I'm super excited about 2026. There's a lot of moving parts in our industry right now, and listen, we all know when rates drop, and they will, kind of everything goes by the wayside. We've been through this 1,000 times before, right? Like, all of our best laid plans go to the left or the right when we're dealing with volume, right? And so we'll see how that all plays out. All right, Ryan, I can't thank you enough for taking the opportunity to join us today. Super excited to hear more about this LendingPad integration as it rolls out. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that and seeing if I can't help support you guys on that side of it. But thank you for taking the time today. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for tuning into the Non-Del Influencers podcast, powered by First Funding. For more resources and episodes, visit nondelinfluencers.com.